Okay, so we're going to go through the deployment, and for this, I'm not going to set up a new application. I'm just going to use an application that already exists, that I know works. I don't know which one I'm going to use though. This one called Depth, and it was a bit complete. It's from 2 years ago. Damn, it's a long time. Yeah, I think it was complete. What am I using? I'm using TypeScript. The server. Okay, yeah. So this is okay because it has both. So the server is written in plain JS, but the front end is in TypeScript. Now I'll deploy both so that we can see the the difference in terms of the execution of the different commands during build. Because remember, TypeScript it's a build tool. It is not meant to run on a production environment. Any application that is built with TypeScript has to undergo a build process for it to then be deployed. So I don't have this locally. I need to run it locally first just to ensure that everything works. So I'm going to navigate to your folder. So it follows the exact same structure as I've been showing you, but I believe it doesn't have authentication. I can't remember. Let me see the controllers. Yeah, it does have authentication. And I don't know that there is anyone amongst you who has taken some time to go through such a project. Let me share it with you just in case, because you can learn a lot from just reading somebody's code and seeing how they do their projects. It's been cloned. And I'll get into it. Open the server. Install the packages. Then open the client. Install the packages as well. Then open the entire project on VS Code. So both the client and the server. The reason I want to do this is because I need to make some changes. So just some random things there. Then MongoDB URI. I'm going to use the Atlas. I don't know whether I have MongoDB running locally. There's so many things that I haven't done since I
Excuse me.
Yep.
Yeah, by the way, Nini, I was supposed to send you a React version of the charity app we had created.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think ulipoteza vitu mingi.
Eh, eh.
Yeah, I'll send you a
Ama,
link, but
will you
nitajua
want
through my Git.
nini?
It's tulikuwa tuna implement we were implementing backend,
Mm.
lakini saa ilikuwa nania tushow John atushow vile alifanya deployment na Vercel.
Yeah. So your
But
deployment ndo napitia sahi, but now using a
or
different client.
deployment
Yes.
or the rest tutafanya within this week, the nini, the update, delete and whatever yenye nilikuwa
Yes.
ni so
Yeah. Yeah. So right now I want to cover the nini, the deployment of both the client and the server. But for this app in to depth with. But first I need to set it up because it's been a while tangu ni run, just to make sure that it still runs. The database doesn't seem to be connecting. It's a bummer. The IP is whitelisted. Sina MongoDB locally. Stimbana connection in a fail. Let's see. We go to mongodb.com. So first things first is that when you're deploying, you have to use Atlas. You can deploy with the local with your local with MongoDB running locally. Interesting. Yeah. So the issue is with I have a router that I'm setting up, and for some reason it wasn't allowing that connection to go through. So I've changed my network. It has gone through. Okay. Anyway, so that's the server. Um, this is the client. Hopefully it works. Then an error fetching a balance, fetching a transaction. Okay. That's likely because we're missing. So this is hard coded. This is bad. This is not good for your applications. And I need to change that because so when it comes to deployment, these are some of the things that you should be considerate of One of them is that your database has to be on. You can't use the locally running database for you to deploy. So the easiest thing is to connect to Atlas. Now later on, you'll be deploying production applications, in which case the free Atlas may not be the best, especially if it's for clients. So when you have a VPS, you can set up your own running instance of MongoDB on that VPS, because MongoDB, remember, it's open source technology, and so you can just get the community version of MongoDB and install it. So that is the first thing, right? The second thing is that you should not have hard-coded values like this, because this, like here, we can see the different places this is used. This is a function to handle logout. This handle logout will be executed when somebody clicks on logout. Now it is executing a fetch to this URL, the localhost port 3005. Now right now 3005, it is actually running on port 3005. So let's see. So it kind of should have worked. I don't remember how I built this up. It had a registration form. It does have register page. Oh, it's right here. Okay. So I'll register crom market crom.codes font. Don't think I had any validation. Crom for password create account. Okay. So there was some validation. 0723 create account. Crom 1234 create account. Okay, so user created successfully. Let me check, confirm that we have users. Okay, so the user is created successfully. Now we can log in. So I'm doing this just to ensure that the app actually works, because that is something you want to always do. So this was a very simple application, and the idea is for you to load maximum of 100,000. Okay, so you remove one. Okay, so the idea was that you create accounts and you can just add expenses. It tracks your balance, and once you log out and log in, your transactions will still be there because they are persisted in the database. So a very simple application, but then it encompasses pretty much all the concepts that you'd want in a full stack application. You have authentication, you have routing. This one didn't have routing. I remember I was using state to manage which page, but ideally you'd have routing. The backend has routing. You have some logic. It is just simple arithmetic, but then the logic is being handled by the backend. So it's a complete application. Well, not entirely complete, but it encompasses most of the operations that that you'd be undertaking. And yeah, I was to send the link to. Did I? Oh, yeah, I did. So I shared the link to this in your group. Just go through the code. As I mentioned earlier, the client is built with TypeScript, but the server is built with JavaScript. So you can use that as a chance to just see what TypeScript, how different TypeScript is. Since it's not a very complicated application, reading the code should be something that you're able to do and understand what's going on. So now that I've confirmed that the application is running, I just need to get rid of this. So right now it is using hard-coded values for the backend. This will not work in production because remember we're going to be deploying the client on Vercel, and so we'll have the client running on Vercel and the server running on Render. And this is ideally for most cases, this is the setup that you're going to have for your applications. So the way that these ones communicate is just through sending a request to the server, and then the server sending a response back to the client. So for this to happen, the client needs to know where the server lives, and the server needs to know where the client lives. And that reminds, I need to check how actually I don't think the backend has any hard-coded values for the front end, because all it does is send back a response. But ideally that is also something that you'd want to have in the environment variables. Now, with the way that I had built this, just for running locally. I hadn't built it for deployment. But now that we're going to be deploying this, we need to introduce the .env for environment variables. And environment, just think of anything that you'd want to be dynamic based on where the application is running, because that is the environment. So we have a development environment, we have a production environment, we have staging environments whereby tests are done, because the development environment is not always like local. So you have, I think perhaps a better term for that environment would be local. So you have the local environment, then you have a development environment, which could be somewhere in the cloud, so on a server somewhere, but then it's different from a production environment. So you go from running your application locally as a developer and making your changes locally to then placing it in the staging environment, whereby other developers, the QA team, they can run tests on it. And then once the tests are done and everything is confirmed to be okay, then the app is taken, or your changes are taken over to now the production environment. So any form of deployment will need environment variables for things like what I've mentioned right here. This should never be hard-coded, because this will only work locally when the client is running locally and when the server is also running locally. Now, since we are deploying, that's not going to be the case. The client will not be running locally, neither will the server. So we need to use environment variables for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it, and I'm going to add this as vit. I've forgotten the environment variables, how to set them up. I think it's vit underscore. So vit environment variables. So you look at the
Excuse
documentation.
Mark.
Yep.
I have a question. The .env file, it lies in the backend or front end? It's backend.
It's in both. It's in,
It's in both.
yeah, it can be in both. So right now, we have the env variable, the env file, for for the client, we also have an env file for the server. So depending on, see, like the server needs to connect to a MongoDB database, so that will contain an environment variable for that MongoDB database. The client doesn't need to connect to the, should never, the client shouldn't ever connect to the database directly, and so you won't have MongoDB environment variable here. But on the client, we need this is the most important environment variable right now, because we're about to deploy this, and once we deploy it, we would want it to be dynamic, to be able to handle the server running on render. So that is why we are adding the environment variable to the client as well, or rather the environment file. So this is how to go about it. As always, you don't need to memorize any of this stuff. You can see, like, it's been a minute since I worked with Vite. I only use Vite for classes, but for all my projects I use Next.js, and the Next.js handles env files is a bit different. So this, for an environment variable that is going to be exposed to the client, which is what we want, we need it to be, it needs to have the Vite underscore before it. So actually this is just what we're going to use. So what we can call it is, we can call this base URL, and that is now going to contain our, well, it's running locally, it is going to contain this. So that we move it there, and then now when we are making a call, like here, we don't hard code the value, we use the environment variable. And from the search, we can see that the way that you access an environment variable is using this import.meta.env and then the actual environment variable. So what I will do in this case, because I don't want to keep repeating import.meta.env, I would set up in the lib, I would have constants. So just variables that I expect are going to be used all across the application. And one of these constants is going to be the API base URL, and that is going to be now the import dot meta dot env dot whatever we called it, this base URL. So I need this to be accessible everywhere, and so what I do is I export it. So once I export it from the constants, and this needs to be constants because there are going to be many, I can then use it. So like here, so this would now be that, so that we can use the string interpolation. And now I'm going to use API base URL coming from, that's going to be imported from lib constants. So that way, if I go to production, I won't need to change my code, because my code is going to dynamically update based on the value that is set in the .env. So remember, we had this all across our application, so I need to go everywhere making that change, and it's going to be by removing that, then changing that to backticks, and then is this dollar? So API base URL, it will get automatically imported like that. Then I save that. Then I go to the next one. So for this one, you can see there are 3 places. What happened? Okay, so I want to grab this, all of them. So there are 3 instances, and they're pretty much the same. I'll delete that, highlight that, and that. Oops, something's wrong. Okay, so something went wrong. Okay, let's try that again. Highlight that, then that. Okay, so the highlight will not work. That is why I had the challenge earlier. Okay, delete it, backticks, move, backtick, move back, then $, API base URL. Hopefully that works for him. It works. Save that file. Then in the login, we do the same thing. So this is something that you will do while building your application. It is not something that you come back to change later on. It should be part of the application building process, that you use dynamic environment-based variables where necessary. So I think the application is ready now, and the way that we're going to know it's ready is by going back to the browser and just okay, so we log out. Okay. Error login UART. Let's look at the console. Failed to load resource. Okay, this means that what does this mean? Oh, it is repeated, the API / v1. Okay, my bad. So since I included API v1 over here, that is the reason why it is throwing four errors. So ideally I would want it to be here, but for the sake of time I'm just going to remove it from here, and then in the code we're going to have the API v1, but the better option would have been the /API /v1 to be over here, so that in case you ever need to change to a version 2, you can simply update here. But I think actually, wait, what makes more sense? I think actually having it here, so if there's a version 2, you can update the actual code, because a second version of an API means some things are broken, some things are not going to work the exact same way, right? So the application should hopefully run now. Yeah, it runs. So we get our balance, and we can deposit, we can withdraw, and we get our transactions. We can log out, we can log back in. Okay. So the application works with the changes that we have made. That means it is now ready for deployment. Right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to push those changes that I've made. And the changes are accept this one. So I still need the env.example. Should have copied it. Okay, but everything else was made here. True. Yeah. So I can push. So now the other thing that's very, very important about env files is that they never get pushed to version control, and so you should always have .env in your git ignore, preferably in the root of the project, so that it can ignore both on the server and the client as well. Now we're going to see then what we do, because we've just added environment variables that are needed by the application for it to run. So what we're going to do now is go to Vercel. So I'll go to Vercel, and then so on Vercel I'm going to be deploying the client. Now remember, both the client and the server, they live in one repository. So when we go to Vercel, I want to connect my GitHub account right now for work reason. So I'll just copy this. But ideally, the best thing to do in this part will be to continue with GitHub, so that actually I can let me connect my GitHub account over here. Okay, so once you have connected your GitHub account, if it's your first time, it's going to ask you to install Vercel on your GitHub. So it's like think of it as an application that Vercel gets you to install on your GitHub account, so that it can get access to your repositories. You'd give access to all repositories so that you don't have to be giving it access one by one, so that it can list your repos, just as you can see here. So this will give it access to both public and private repositories. So in this case, I want to deploy depwith, and I'm going to import it. And for this, because I want to deploy the client, remember, on the way that we build our applications, server, client, they live in the same repository, in the same folder. So that means that we need to tell Vercel that, hey, we're not deploying the root of the project. We're going to be deploying instead just the client, because Vercel, remember, we are deploying our client on Vercel and our server on Render. Now you can deploy both on Vercel or both on Render, but remember, we do this for the sake of learning how to have those in completely separate servers. So what you need to do here is you need to edit the root directory because you're deploying the client. So what you're going to do is, well, you can see Vercel has already picked up that the client is built on Vite and the server is built on Express. So we select the client, and what that's going to do is it is going to update our application preset, simply because Vercel is able to automatically detect that what is the project that is in the client folder is running Vite. Once you do that, since this is a TypeScript project, this is where the command to build the application goes. By default, Vercel is going to have it set up, but in the event that you have like a certain build process that is not just a matter of running npm run build, then this is where you would edit what your build script is. Now, looking at our Vite configuration, we know that the build script will always be npm run build. Now, for this, I see actually that there is a, I haven't made this change. How does it come by default with Vite? Oh, I think for this we need to make it explicit that it is going to be npm run build instead of Vite build, so that it can run that script. And actually, before you get to deployment, if your application has a build process, always try and build it locally. And I'm going to do that by having these two things open so that you can see what happens when we build the client. Now I'm going to run on the client over here. I'm going to run the build script, and that's npm run build. And we can see that we have some TypeScript errors. Now, by running this locally, what that means is that if we try to go build this application in Vercel, we're going to run into the same issues. Now, this is mostly to do with TypeScript, because if it's a plain JavaScript application, then it will, in most cases, not have any build process. So if your setup is TypeScript, you want to run the build process first, just to ensure that there are no errors that are thrown. So right now I can see 3 errors, and the first one is on app.tsx line 34. So error is declared, but its value is never read, so that means it is unnecessary. We're going to go to app.tsx line 34. Okay, so what we can do is we can log the error, just to get that error, or yeah, that error gone. Then we have transactions table, line 6, table footer is declared but its value is never read. Why is that? Okay, let me look at the code. Line 6, transactions table, components, table footer. Okay, so we can remove the transactions. I think this was dummy data when I was building the application before getting, or rather before setting up the backend. So I was using this dummy data that we see here. So I can remove the transactions, and I don't know why. Oh, okay, it's because the table footer it's commented out. Now, the reason why this is commented out is because the total, I'll move the total to the very top. No, actually I didn't. So this, let me see, it's supposed to display what the total is. Oh, I stopped the server. Yeah, so it's supposed to display what the total is. Right now this total is not accurate. What was the total? Is it the total for all the transactions? I think the idea behind the total was to show the balance. So since we have the current balance at the top, I believe that is the reason why I commented out the table footer. So I don't really see any necessity of this. So actually we can just remove it. So we just leave table body. And remove the table footer. Now if we build our application, so I have an alias for building, which is not working because I need to be in the client folder. So this is short for npm run build. So building for production, cool. So no errors, which is okay. So you can see what happened after the build executed. It is that it created a dist folder, and this dist folder will contain all the JS file, all the JS code that is output as a result of running the build process. It's a lot of code. You won't get to understand what any of it does because it is in a state called obfuscation. It's been obfuscated in such a way that you can't really, it's not meant for humans to read it. The CSS as well, it is all here. So I believe this is using Tailwind, so all the compiled CSS is right there. Then we have a single file, the index.html, which loads this CSS file and this index, this JS file. Now this dist folder, if you were to push it to version control, you can literally just deploy this dist folder. This is now a complete application. See, React, remember React is also, it's a development tool. The browser doesn't fully understand React as it is, and React code as it is. It doesn't understand JSX. It doesn't understand TSX. The browser only understands JS, and it understands CSS. So that is why Tailwind needs to be converted to just normal CSS, or rather a CSS file needs to be compiled. Same reason React code needs to be compiled into just normal JS. So that build process, running the build script, npm run build, gives you a dist folder. This dist folder, you can take it and run it. Like right now, we know that normally we don't run React applications using live server, but I can navigate to the dist folder, and once I'm here, I can use live server to load this application, and you can see that it works. Now it's not going to work perfectly because of the connection to the Nini, the connection to There's actually another thing I'll need to fix on the back end. So the connection to the back end fails, and it's because of cause. So let me fix that now that I'm here, now that I've seen it. So server.js. Okay, so remember when we say that things should not be hard coded, this was the reason why, because now this is hard coded on the server, which means that if we deploy and our client runs on a different URL, different port, then cause will fail. So right now it's failing because I have loaded this application on this particular on 127.0.0.1 port 8080, which is different from localhost port 5173. So we need to do the exact same thing that we did. So this will be frontend URL, and that for now is going to be this, just so that I can confirm that this actually works. Then this server.js, instead of using the hard-coded value, then we use express inakuanga nini to access the nini, the environment variables. Yes, am I forgetting this? And we can always look at this. Yeah, process. Damn it. Blame the lack of coffee. So process dot env dot then that front end URL right here. Then we save that. Then we run the server. It should have automatically just reloaded. So now so we log out, we can log in. We had Chrome. So remember, this is the application that is now running the dist folder. It's not the React Vite server. I have built it, and I'm now using live server to run this application, and it almost works. There's an error fetching your balance, your transactions. Let me see. Unauthorized. Does this not work? Oh, this is the backend that is returning this error response. Why the backend is returning 4.1, I have no idea. Let me look. Controllers balance, get user balance. No, that must be middleware. So, middleware token. It's a cookies problem. Okay. So the issue is with the cookies. So application, then cookies. Value is here. Let me change something. Auth cookie. And also, I believe the issue is that the cookie is not being stored. And without the cookie, the user cannot be authenticated. Yep. So again, middleware requires authentication. No. Auth login. Generate TWT token. So this is okay. So none requires HTTPS. Lux doesn't. But I don't know whether Lux is going to work. Cookies is always an issue for the longest time. Yep, not setting the cookie. See, when I say the thing about deployment that is going to be challenging will be this part, dealing with cookies. So we're on a different origin. Hmm. So this is failed to fetch. Origin has been blocked by cause. Did I not set localhost port 8080 server frontend URL? Okay. So no causation now, but will the cookie be stored? Yep. So you have the auth cookie. So it works because of the value of lux. Now if we were to set this to none, we would have to be in a production environment where we have HTTPS. So actually that is something that we need to change here, because this, I would want it to be none, because in production our application is going to be running. We're not going to add a custom domain. Now if you're adding a custom domain whereby you have like the client application is running on myapp.com and then the server is running on api.myapp.com, then that's uncomplicated, because that by definition will be, you've seen over here what the same site means. Only requires the same scheme and the same registrable domain. Now same site is not normally complicated. These cookie settings are not complicated if you have the same domain on an application for both the client and the server. But the moment you start working with different domains, such as we are going to work, and this is the primary reason why I normally prefer it if you deploy your applications to separate, to Vercel on the client, client on Vercel and server on Render, because this exposes you to these problems, right? Problems that you need to deal with in order to understand what's going on. And it might take a while to really understand this whole cookie stuff. You can see it still bothers me to date. But once you get the hang of it, you're going to be able to be solving the cookie issues a bit quicker. So I'm going to make an update to this code, and I'm going to say that if process.env dot node environment is production, then I want the value of this to be none, otherwise I want the value of this to be lax. Because in production I will most certainly have HTTPS, and that is the only time that none works. If you set this to none and you're running locally without HTTPS, then the cookies won't work. So, and setting it to none is the only way that it will allow, you can see here, so setting it to none, the cookie is sent with all requests, including cross-site requests. So the fact that we're going to be having the client on one domain and the server on another domain means that they're going to be cross-site requests being made. So that only works if the cookie is marked as secure, and marking a cookie as secure can only be done, that is why I had this initial piece of code here, can only be done when you are in when your client and the server are communicating over HTTPS, in other words, in production. So that explains this this logic over here. So when we're in production, we want that value to be none, and when we are not in production, we want it to be lax, a bit relaxed. Yeah. So the cookie is generally not sent with typical cross-site requests from different site. However, it is sent when the user navigates to the cookie's origin by clicking a link. So right now, locally, even with lax, like it won't work. Remember earlier I had 127.0.0.1. In as much as that is the IP address for localhost, it won't work because that is considered to be a different site per se. It's not the same site. Okay, it's a cross-site request when it comes from the IP address going to localhost. Yeah, localhost is a domain that is for this local IP address, the 127. But in terms of how the browser is, how the communication is going to be done, how the server is going to be allowing these cookies to be sent, and the browser is going to be sending them, then those are considered different sites. So locally, if you're going to set it as LAX, then your application needs to be running on localhost. So this would have worked if this actually, when this was, what was it before? It was strict. So it was strict because strict, the cookie is never sent with any cross-site request. Now it was working earlier with it being strict and all, because when you're running the Vite server, the Vite runs on localhost, like the app was running on localhost. But when I executed live server, it started running on 127.0.0.1. That, as I mentioned, is considered to be a different site. And so that now fails there. Fails this when it is strict. And strict will not work if you deploy on Vercel and Render. It will not work because those will be cross-site requests. So yeah, it is the most secure option. It prevents CSRF attacks, but it will limit you. It will limit you a lot. So you want to go with none, but in a secure context. You want to go with LAX. None if you're deploying to different sites, but you're on production. LAX, have it LAX otherwise. Strict will limit you. It will work locally. It will work in production if they're both on the same server. But other than that, it will not work. So I'm going to leave it as this. And that's one thing I'll push when preparing for deployment of the server. I think because of time now, I'm just going to go straight into the actual deployment. So we have quite a few changes. I'll add them one by one. So here, this is to fix the error. So was this fix build errors, then server, this is update cause, and cookies, update cookie settings, cool. Then push. Okay, so what we're going to do next is not just go straight to deployment, because I think we've spent quite some time explaining all of this, or rather getting the app ready for deployment. So I'm going to go to Vercel, new project. This is npm run build. This is where we'd stopped before I went to run the build locally and found that I need to fix some of those errors. So by now I'm sure I'll have pushed the changes. Output directory is okay. install command also okay. Environment variables, this is where you'd set that variable that we have set right here. So if you have many, you can just copy all of them, then come here and paste, and it's just going to pick the value, the actual variable and its value. Now right now we know that this is not going to be localhost, but we haven't deployed the backend yet. Okay, so we cannot give it a value. We just know that it is going to be updated, so we can leave it as that for now, but remembering that we are going to come back to this and change it. So I'll show you how to change your environment variables after you have deployed. So I'll click on deploy and give it a few minutes. So it shouldn't take too long because it's not a huge app. So installing dependencies. Okay. Okay. So no errors during the build process. That's good. Okay. Deployment gone through. No, it has no screenshot. I have no idea why. But let's continue to dashboard, and then you can see it's given us a domain. It will most certainly not work because I have no idea why this is the case. Let me actually take a screenshot of that. And where will I place it? Let me place it somewhere here. Just remember to find out why that is. Why that's the case. Let's block. Or maybe okay. Okay. I think it's because we set it's because of the environment variable. This it is because of what we set as the environment variable for this. So it is trying to access an app that is running locally, and that could be the reason why we've got that prompt. Now the next thing will be to get the backend going. So I'm going to go into render.com, then I'll sign in using GitHub. The process will be very, very similar. So I'll come to new. So I want web service, not a static site. Then I'll select the depth repository. Then, just as we did on Vercel, I'm going to come and change the root directory. So this root directory is going to be server. Is it server? Yeah, it's server. So server is going to be the root directory for this build. And is there anything else that we need to know? We do not need to change anything else there. So you can leave it as yarn for the build command. Actually no, this will be npm install because we need it to install the dependencies. It is going to run that installation process. Then the start command should be what you've set up. Do we have a start command? Let me see. I hope I do, because yep. So I have the start command. So it's just going to be npm start. Then so you could leave it as what it was, just yarn and yarn start. It will do the exact same thing. So yarn is an alternative to npm. There's another alternative called pnpm. So they pretty much do the exact same thing. They have some differences, like PNPM is really fast compared to NPM, but at the end of the day you can use any. So we'll select the free option because they don't pay for hosting on, well, not on render. Then the environment variables, again we see them. So we're going to come here to know the environment variables for the server. Then we'll copy everything, then paste it right here. Now the only thing that we're going to be changing is the front-end URL. Remember, the front-end URL now, it's no longer running on localhost 8080. This time we have a domain. This is the domain. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to come here and I'm going to paste that as the domain. This is very, very important. And if in your env variable, in your env file, you didn't have a /, then do not add a / over here. So that is the only thing that I'm going to change. These other ones can remain as they are. Maybe I can make this just a bit more secure, but it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to crack this thing. So auth cookie, that can remain as it is. This will remain as it is, but I can give this a different database for production. So dep with prod, so that it creates another database and it doesn't confuse the data, because remember I'm using the same cluster, the same connection. So if I use the same database, that means the data that I added when I was testing will be the same data that is going to be in production now. In production, you want to start afresh. So it's going to be now the environment as well will be production. This is also key. So in the environment is production, that is going to sort those cookie settings that we set, and any other logic that depends on the environment variable. So once we have that, I think that is all. We can deploy web service. So what we're going to be doing is that once this is deployed, we're going to get a link to the backend, and this is it, depwith.onrender.com. We need to copy it, then go back to our Vercel deployment. So this is still deploying. That's okay, we can leave it. We'll come back and look at the logs in case there's anything. So there are some vulnerabilities. It's okay, we'll leave them. It's not a production application. So we come back to this guy, to the front end. Remember, there was an environment variable that we left as localhost. Now we need to come back. So I came to the settings. So you need to have selected the actual project. Then you come to settings. Then you come to environment variables. Then you'll find your environment variable right here, and you're going to edit it. Once you come to edit it, you will paste there the link to the render backend that we've just deployed. Don't know that it's done. It's not yet done. Okay, so once it is done, it is going to build successfully, deploying service running on port 3005. Okay, database connected successfully. Perfect. So I think we can actually open this. Don't know what I have on the roots, Nini. I think it's still deploying. Yep, so it's still deploying. Okay, so let's give it a minute or two. So once it is deployed, let me close out all of this. So this we can save, and the moment you update your environment variables, so okay, in the recording I can see that I'm blocking this, so let me move. So the moment you update your environment variables, you should see this, the option to redeploy. So just make sure to click it. So click redeploy. So that it can redeploy the application with the new environment variable. So locally you set environment variables through a file, the .env, but when you deploy, well, on Vercel and on Render, you set those through the settings. So let's see whether this is completed. Okay, so it's completed. Okay, so the API is running. Silence is golden. That gives me confidence that that API is now running and it's accessible to anybody on the internet. And so if I come now to my application, I should not see any. Okay, so I have an unauthorized error. That is good. That is good. So I can log out. Log out is successful. That is good. Then, so what I want to look out for is, first of all, there's not going to be any console log errors, and second, my cookies will be set. I don't know how to split this. I have to draw. Okay. So I'll check the cookies. Actually, it's already been set. It's only that it's empty. Okay, so let me clear it. Console is there. Cookies are here. This is a new database, so it doesn't have any data, but if I refresh, I should see dep with prod. It doesn't have any users, so I'll start by creating a user, register, come here, give a username, phone number, password, then create account. So create an account, something went wrong. 44 not found. 44 not found. So it's showing 44 not found. I have no idea why. It's because I'm missing the slash API slash v1. I don't know why that's missing on register. So let me look at the code. Pages register. Oh yeah. I think on this I replaced yep. So here, so this needs to be slash API slash v1 slash auth slash register. I probably did the same mistake. No, I didn't do it here. So it was only just on register. Okay. So I need to push that change, but once I've pushed that change, I don't need to do anything, because remember, Vercel automatically just picks the new deployment, and that is one of the advantages of Vercel without doing much, because you can set this up on your own. So here we have two deployments, right? And this was the redeploy, because we changed our environment variables, and this was the initial deployment, and this was the last commit message. So all I have to do is push this change. So I'll use AI to generate the commit message, then just push. So this is going to pick that the client, see, Vercel has already picked it up. I didn't have to do anything. It's just real time. And ideally, this guy render shouldn't pick it up, because remember we set the root folder of the server to be the server folder. And so if render doesn't realize, let me actually just refresh this to be sure. If render doesn't pick up any change that affects the server folder, then it will not redeploy. The same thing will happen with the client. If I make a change on the server and that change only affects the server folder and I push, Vercel will not pick it up, because it will see there's nothing on the client to redeploy. So Vercel, this is one of its advantages. It sets up the CI/CD process for you automatically in such a way that all you have to do from after you have deployed the first time, all you have to do from then henceforth is just push your changes and Vercel will automatically deploy. You can see the last commit message. It is that one that I've just made right now. And if I come here and I refresh the application, it should pick up the new changes. So this is okay. So I'll click on logout successful. I'll clear this. I'll confirm I do not have, okay, I do. I'll clear it. So I will register because the registration failed. Email this mark. Password. Then I'll create account. Yep. So user created successfully. And if we check in our database, if we refresh, we're going to see that user that I've just created right now, 1830. This is UTC time. So plus 3, that is going to be 2130. Right now it's 2130. So I can now log in. And this, remember, is on the application that is hosted. So it's not on the locally running application. So login. We log in, it's successful. We have a balance of 0, no errors on our console. That is good. We have our auth cookie. That's working. That's perfect. We can deposit. It's taking a minute. Well, not really a minute, like a second. And one of the things that you'd want to do for such an application is just have some user feedback, because you can see as I wait, so I know it's doing its thing, but the user might not know, and so they might spam this button. So ideally, see what has happened. You'd want to do some form of reacting to the user taking an action and there being some time before that action is completed. So you'd want to maybe change this to show depositing, and then you disable the button, both of them, so that the user cannot spam click. Say I spam clicked and it's sent 3 requests to my server. And you don't want that, because first of all, that opens your server up to like misuse, either intentional or unintentional. Now at the server level, you should have safeguards to prevent to some form of rate limiting, whereby for certain that a user should not be able to send like more than one request in 2 seconds. So you can rate limit, right? You can have that limitation on the server side, but it's just a good step or something good to have, because even with the rate limit on the server side, then the user will still have to wait for that feedback. Give the user feedback right here that, hey, we're processing your deposit, chill out. do not click the deposit button again. So you add some feedback. Same for the withdrawal. So you can withdraw 1,000. So transaction has been created successfully. You can see it show up here. The balance is updated, and I can log out. I can come back in. So the login as well, you can see the login is taking a second to process. So if the user is impatient and you're not giving them instant feedback that something is happening, then they're likely to continue just spamming the login button. So you add feedback to prevent that kind of a thing. It's just a good thing to have. Right. I don't know why it's creating 2 cookies. It's supposed to override. Not sure why this is the case. I think there's a misconfiguration with the backend for when the app first loads, and there's no. See. Okay. Okay. When the user logs out. Ah, okay. It's the logout process that needs to be updated on the server. Let me try and see. Clear cookie. Okay. I think the better option instead of using clear cookie will be to set the expiration of the cookie to like immediate, to immediately expire, so that it can override this, because this is not good. Actually, what happens if I try to go to, yeah, this is the reason it's not good. So it's not really clear in the cookie. It's just creating another empty cookie, but then this cookie continues to be there. And I honestly don't know why that is the case, because clear cookie should be doing its work. But the solution is just to set the expiration of the cookie to be 1 second from there, or to set the max age to be 0. When you set the max age to be 0, then it is going to override the existing cookie, and that's going to clear it on the browser. But right now it's not. So even if I log out and I refresh the page, it will still pick up that I am authenticated, because the cookie still exists. But that's a bug to be fixed some other time, or maybe never. This is not really a production application. Yep. But that does it for deployment. It was a bit long. Actually, we're right on time, because we started the session at 7:30. So as we agreed, because I don't want to take questions right now. I will share the recording of this. I've been recording, I will probably upload it to YouTube and then share it with you guys. If you have any questions, raise them as the first thing in tomorrow's session or tomorrow during the day as you go through this, the recording. Raise it then, either during the day or tomorrow's session. Because right now, because of time, I have to end here. Still got a few things to do. Still have to go find supper, and I still have to sleep early and wake up early tomorrow. So questions, I think I can take them in tomorrow's session. But in case there's anything you missed in this entire process, the recording will be there. I've shared with you the repo. It is right here, github.com/mahmoudi/depwith. So you can, if you want to follow along with the exact same project, you can go create a fork, then have it in your own account, then go through the deployment process exactly as I've gone through it, but now on your own end using your own configurations. So don't use my database credentials. I'll actually go change the password, because if I'm going to be sending this to YouTube, I'm pretty sure somebody is going to steal it. But there's really nothing on there. I use it just for development purposes, school purposes. So thank you for sticking around till the end. Talk to you guys tomorrow.